On September 3, 2002, the Halvorsen family father David, 45, mother Elena, 41, and their two children Jonas, 15, and Clara, 13, vanished without a trace while trekking in the Stormfjord Highlands of northern Norway. They were not casual hikers. David, a respected glaciologist at Bergen University, and Elena, an emergency room nurse, had spent over a decade exploring remote wilderness together. Their children had grown up in tents and on cliff trails, accustomed to snowfields and high-altitude winds. That autumn, they planned a 4-day traverse of a little-documented section of the Highlands, a place where even experienced Norwegian guides rarely ventured. Their route, pieced together from outdated topographical maps and satellite photos, would lead them across hanging valleys, ice-choked gorges, and narrow ridges where the weather could change in minutes. David had filed their itinerary with local authorities and secured permits for backcountry camping in restricted conservation zones. On the morning of September 3rd, they left the harbor village of Vågvann at first light, driving up a logging road to an unmarked trailhead. A fisherman later recalled seeing them unloading heavy packs and sealed barrels of food and gear from their SUV. The family looked like a professional expedition, he told reporters. They had radios, climbing helmets, and even avalanche probes. You don't see tourists with that. By mid-morning, a park warden named Ole Strandvik crossed paths with them on a well-known ridge. He noticed their unusual route markers, bright orange ribbons tied to low birch branches, pointing toward an old glacial corridor that hadn't been part of an official trail for decades. They chatted briefly. They seemed confident, almost excited, Strandvik said later. The father told me they were going to map a forgotten valley. That was the last reliable sighting. By dusk, on September 6th, when they were due to radio in from a mountain pass called Eldren Gap, there was only silence. No GPS pings, no satellite messages. At first, the gap in communication was blamed on storm clouds rolling off the North Atlantic, but by the next evening, Elena's sister phoned Norwegian Search and Rescue. Within 24 hours, helicopters and alpine units were sweeping the region. Thermal cameras probed canyons where snow lingered even in September. But the Highlands are a labyrinth of knife-edged peaks and mist-filled ravines. From the air, the searchers said, the landscape folded into itself like a crumpled map, hiding anything that wasn't moving. On the ground, rescuers fought horizontal sleet, scree slopes, and waterfalls bursting from hidden ice caves. Despite a massive operation involving more than 180 personnel, dogs, drones, and borrowed military equipment, no one found so much as a footprint. The Halvorsen family, their camp, and every trace of their journey had vanished into the high country. The official search for the Halvorsens lasted nearly 3 weeks, longer than any previous rescue in the Stormfjord Highlands. Norwegian media ran daily headlines. Family of 4, lost in glacier country. Volunteers from as far as Sweden and Iceland arrived with their own climbing gear to comb ravines and ice caves. Yet the Highlands seemed to swallow every effort. Dogs lost the scent at scree slopes, drones vanished into fog banks, the helicopter's downwash only stirred clouds of ice crystals. By late September 2002, the operation had shifted from rescue to recovery. Authorities concluded that even if the family had survived an accident, exposure to freezing rain and high winds would have been fatal after a few nights. But David's colleagues at the university refused to let the case fade. They posted satellite images online, crowdsourcing tips from amateur cartographers. Strange marks on an aerial photo, possibly tents? Sent teams scrambling to remote cirques, only to find nothing but snow-streaked rock. Over the next decade, the Halvorsen case grew into a folk legend among Scandinavian hikers. People traded theories on internet forums: a hidden crevasse, a bear attack, a military accident, even an undisclosed landslide. Twice, climbers found scraps of weather-beaten nylon or metal stakes in unexplored gullies. Each time, forensic testing showed no link to the missing family, and public hope rose and fell like the tides. Memorial hikes began every autumn, starting from Vågvann and ending at the Eldren Gap, where searchers had once set up base. Jonas's best friend from school led the first one in 2004. By 2010, dozens of hikers carried small lanterns into the mountains on September nights, leaving them glowing on ridges as a signal to the missing four. Technology advanced, but the mountains still kept their secret. High-resolution LiDAR scans, GPS-equipped rescue drones, even ice-penetrating radar flown in from Svalbard produced only sharper images of empty stone. The Halvorsens' absence became a cautionary tale in training courses for mountain guides. Even experts can vanish in familiar terrain. By 2020, nearly everyone had resigned themselves to an unresolved tragedy. Yet quietly, among the tight circle of climbers who attempted the Highlands' unclimbed walls, a rumor persisted. Somewhere above a glacial amphitheater called Skardal, a hidden ledge held a scattering of old equipment. The rumor had no coordinates, only whispers. It would take the next generation of technical climbers to reach it. On August 17, 2023, a small group of climbers from Bergen, 3 women, and 1 man in their late 20s, set out to complete an unclimbed mixed ice route above the glacial amphitheater of Skardal. They carried lightweight bivouac gear, a drone for scouting, and helmet cameras for social media. Their leader, 29-year-old Ingrid Løvstad, had grown up hearing about the Halvorsen case. She joked in a video diary before the ascent, "If we see any ghosts, we'll let you know." Late in the afternoon, clouds rolled in, and the team sheltered on a narrow ledge. While scouting a safer anchor point, Ingrid's drone dipped between 2 overhanging buttresses and caught a flicker of blue far below, something unnatural against the gray ice. She guided the drone closer, and the camera revealed a scatter of objects: a collapsed tent frame, a metal stove, and what looked like a faded child's rucksack half buried in silt. Her voice on the footage trembled. "This isn't ours. This is old." They marked the coordinates and rappelled as far as they could, but the terrain ended in a sheer vertical wall of glacial ice. Back in town, they turned over the drone footage to the Nordland police. Within 48 hours, a joint rescue forensics team was flown in by helicopter, using ice screws and fixed ropes to reach the ledge. What they found stunned even seasoned investigators. A partially preserved base camp was wedged into a crevice like a ship in a bottle. 2 tents shredded by time, cooking pots, notebooks swollen with water, and scattered climbing hardware. Among the artifacts was a leather wallet containing an ID card in the name of Jonas Halvorsen. Nearby, protruding from the ice, were 2 human femurs still clad in hiking pants. Forensic teams worked in shifts for days, extracting remains and cataloging every object. The mountain offered them like reluctant confessions. First Jonas and little Elon's bones, then fragments of adult clothing, then a rusted satellite phone with its antenna snapped. DNA confirmed the identities within a week. At last, the Halvorsen family had been found, 21 years after they vanished. But the discovery raised as many questions as it answered. How had their camp ended up on that impossible ledge? Why had no distress call ever been sent, even though the satellite phone's last call log showed an attempt at 0217 on September 15, 2002? And whose boot prints, far fresher than 2 decades old, were visible on the ice above the camp in the drone footage? The Norwegian media erupted. Old myths revived overnight. Secret military tests, cult activity, a second unknown party in the mountains. Police insisted there was no evidence of third-party involvement, but quietly requested assistance from forensic glaciologists and digital data recovery experts. Meanwhile, hikers began leaving flowers at the trailhead to Skardal, treating it like a shrine. For Ingrid and her team, the find was both vindication and a burden. In interviews, they spoke of an eerie stillness at the ledge, of boot-sized depressions in the ice that looked too crisp to be relics from 2002. One climber, asked if she'd return, simply said, "Some doors in the mountains should stay closed." Within weeks of the Skardal discovery, the Norwegian Criminal Investigation Service, Kripos, created a dedicated task force called Operation Frostline. Its mandate: piece together the Halvorsens' final hours using every modern forensic tool available. In a secure lab in Oslo, technicians dried and preserved the notebooks recovered from the ice. Pages, once illegible with meltwater, revealed hastily scribbled entries. Weather notes, GPS coordinates, and cryptic fragments like "Bridge Gone" and "Echoes in the Gorge." Specialists in alpine survival reconstructed the family's route on 3D terrain models. The path they traced veered off the marked trail 5 kilometers before the Glacier and Unexplained detour. Using LiDAR scans and old satellite imagery, they simulated rock slides and ice collapses from 2002. One scenario showed a snow bridge collapsing under David's weight, stranding the family on an isolated shelf. But that didn't explain the intact satellite phone or the missing emergency beacon. Digital forensics experts extracted fragments of call logs from the rusted phone. It showed 3 outgoing attempts on the night of September 15, 2002, none of which reached a network. The SIM card carried a tiny scratch, as though it had been deliberately removed and reinserted. When asked, police spokespeople simply said, "We are exploring all hypotheses." Media speculation surged. A retired climber told a podcast he had seen unmarked helicopters over Skardal that autumn. Another claimed to possess a photo of foreign soldiers near Vågvann in 2002. Journalists dug up declassified Cold War documents hinting at radar experiments in the Highlands. Each rumor fed the sense that the Halvorsens had stumbled upon something they weren't supposed to see. Meanwhile, official findings painted a different picture. Forensic glaciologists concluded the camp had been entombed under a moving icefall and gradually extruded onto the ledge where it was found. The fresh boot prints captured by Ingrid's drone, they argued, were melt patterns, though even they admitted the shapes looked uncanny. DNA from the remains matched only the 4 family members. No evidence of outsiders, no bullet holes, no signs of violence. Still, certain anomalies refused to vanish. The emergency beacon, listed on the family's packing manifest, was never recovered. The last page of David's notebook had been carefully torn out, and when the notebooks were tested for microfibers, analysts found traces of a synthetic polymer not manufactured in 2002. "We can't explain that yet," the lead chemist admitted to Aftenposten. By late 2024, Operation Frostline released a preliminary report. Most likely an accidental entrapment following severe weather and terrain collapse. But the public remained unconvinced. Documentaries with titles like The Skardal Enigma topped streaming charts. Online forums spun new theories daily, blending science and superstition. Some saw the Halvorsens as victims of government secrecy. Others whispered about portals or time distortions hidden in the Highlands. Ingrid Løvstad, still fielding interviews, summed up the mood. "We went up there to climb a line on a wall. We came back with a story that's not ours to finish." Her team has since retired the route, refusing to share its GPS track. Skardal has become both a pilgrimage site and a warning, a place where the mountains hold on to more than ice. More than 2 decades after the Halvorsens set out on their ill-fated trek, the Stormfjord Highlands still look the same on a crisp autumn morning. Granite ridges etched with snow, glacial rivers carving silent scars into the earth. Tourists come and go, smartphones in hand, following safer marked trails. Yet above them, hidden ledges and ice caves keep their own counsel. Operation Frostline remains technically open. In Oslo, the sealed crates of evidence water-warped notebooks, fragments of tents, a rusted satellite phone sit in a climate-controlled vault, each labeled with a barcode, but also with a sense of unfinished business. Once a year, a quiet meeting reviews any new tips. So far, no one has explained the missing beacon, the polymer fibers, or the boot-shaped depressions in the ice. For the families and friends left behind, closure is complicated. They finally have remains to bury, but no clear narrative of what truly happened. Memorial hikes continue every September. At night, dozens of small lanterns flicker across the ridges, echoing the glow of an unseen campfire. The Skardal case has become a modern myth. Podcasters, documentary filmmakers, and amateur sleuths dissect it like a code. Was it a tragic accident, a cover-up, or something stranger? No official report can compete with the imagination of a public that senses a story half told. If you stand at the Eldrin Gap at dusk, locals say, the wind carries a sound like a voice calling from far below. It's probably nothing more than air moving through ice caverns, but hikers still stop and listen. Because in the mountains of Stormfjord, even now, the line between echo and answer is as thin as the edge of a snow bridge.